life is meaningless. You must build yourself. All right, life is meaningless. You must build yourself. Now, the beginning of the year, okay, so we're thinking about some foundational principles for the channel and what we're really talking about here, okay? And so I think this is about as foundational as you can get, really. And I have to admit that when I was younger and growing up, I didn't think this was a particularly controversial statement. It seemed like a pretty obvious thing to say, really, and that's based on my life experience. It's based on observation of the world around me, and it's based on, I guess, my perception, which admittedly has been shaped by when I was born, and I guess the milieu that I was born into and all the rest of it. But I think really when you look at life, when you look at the world, it's pretty obvious, I would say, to any sentient human being, when we think about life, when we think about the texture of life, and we look at what happens to people that we know, our friends, our family, people on our social networks, colleagues of ours, right? And we see the very joyful but sometimes very cruel and random and tragic things that happen to other people. It's very plain that life is meaningless and that there is no overarching narrative that makes sense of it all until and unless we create a narrative of our own afterwards, after the events, to explain things. And we often do this, don't we? We often do this as human beings. We'll say, oh, well, actually, I lost that job, but then I went on to start a new career. And so, in hindsight, losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's a very nice narrative, but it's a narrative after the event, okay? It's a narrative structure that we have tacked on to the things that happened in order to make sense of it. This is what we do. This is what we do as human beings. Things happen, and then we tell ourselves a story about it afterwards. And the story sometimes competes, by the way, because if you look at history, famously, history is told by the winners, right? There are obviously competing narratives even about things that actually happen. So your perception of what the story is not going to be the same as somebody else's, because it's subjective, okay? So that then brings the whole thing about truth into question. Is there any real truth in any story that we tell ourselves? That's probably for another time. We're getting too much into the weeds now, but the point is that any meaning that we do draw from life, any story, any structure that we do discern in life tends to be after the fact rather than following some preordained plan, okay? As I said, this used to seem like a pretty uncontroversial thing to say. These days, I'm not so sure. Because of the emergence and predominance of a lot of people who believe differently. But I think you have to go with your gut on this one, really. And I would say, in my experience still, and I've been on the planet, quite a long time now, I would say that there is no overarching meaning. However, I would also say that is a fantastically good thing. And the reason it's a good thing is because it allows you and enables you to build yourself, to create your own meaning, okay? And that is a hugely freeing thing. That is a hugely liberating fact, okay? And to bring it into the realm of dating for a moment and romance and relationships, what it means is you have the choice to create whatever kind of romantic or dating life that you want, okay? you can decide everything, all right? You've just got to be bold and make the right moves, or the moves that are necessary in order to put yourself in the best position possible. So you could decide, okay, look, I'm living in small town England, or I'm living in small town America, or wherever it is, and my dating life sucks. There's no opportunities for me here. It all seems to be sewn up. It all seems to be based on some kind of hierarchy, which I'm not, I'm not really acing it in. And so therefore, what I've decided to do is I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm going to go halfway across the world, okay? I'm going to get a different job. I'm going to get a remote job, okay? I'm going to work from my laptop, and I'm going to go and live in a different country and experience a different sort of dating culture, and I'm going to try my luck there, okay? Because it isn't working for me here. On a more simplistic level, you can also make the decision, and you should make the decision, okay? Because it's January, it's a new year, new you and all that. What the decision you should be making is, I'm not going to accept my life in the way that it is currently. I'm just not going to accept it, okay? I am going to do everything within my power to improve the circumstances around me, okay? I'm going to do everything in my power to change this, all right? And if that means I need to change up the way that I approach socializing, if I need to change up the way that I come across, if I need to go to the gym, if I need to get new clothes, if I need to learn better body language, or I need to learn better conversation skills, or I need to find more interesting things to talk about, or I need to find ways not to sabotage myself all the time, all right? All of that is absolutely within your command, okay? All of that is absolutely within your purview. You can make that decision now. You can make that decision today. Because again, if we accept the basic premise that nothing is preordained, there's no inherent meaning, and there's no inherent meaning not just in the world, but there's no inherent meaning in the stories that you tell yourself, okay? So you tell yourself a story that I am shy, I am not a socially skilled person, I am awkward, I find conversation difficult. Those are stories that you tell yourself, okay? Are they true? They might be true at the moment, maybe, but they are open to change, okay? They are open to being changed, and you hold the power to change them. As I say, that is an incredibly liberating thing, all right? That should be empowering to you, okay? Empowering is a bit of a cringe word, I suppose, but that should be exciting, all right? That should signal to you opportunity, okay? You should have a certain sense of rebelliousness in you, all right? Rebelliousness against what has been presented to you, okay? In general, and as I've said before in these videos, sometimes you have to hold opposing truths in your mind at the same time. In general, there's a great argument for acceptance, okay? It's a cornerstone of recovery from addiction, okay? Acceptance, life on life's terms. However, when we think about the serenity prayer, which is said at the end of 12-step meetings, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's not just blind acceptance of everything, all right? It's not just blind acceptance of everything. Oh, I'm a bit shy. Okay, I accept it. Oh well, better luck next life. Let's hope I'm reincarnated. Maybe reincarnated as a camel. Is this a camel? You know, we don't accept the things that we can change. If there are things that we can change, we change them, okay? We accept the things we can't change. So you can't change your past, You can't change where you were born. It's difficult to change your height, although there are operations, I'm told. A lot of other things you can change. There are ways to change your looks. Some of them very extreme and not recommended. But you can certainly change the way that you groom yourself. You can certainly change the way that you dress. You can certainly change, and you can certainly change your social skills, okay? You can certainly, absolutely change the way that you come across. And that has so much weight, okay? That stuff has so much weight that you're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't look into that and you don't consider that, okay? So, once again, this shouldn't be a prescription for doom, okay? This should be a rallying cry for reinvention, for ascendance, okay? The bit should be firmly within your teeth, or between your teeth. It should be a case of, this is the best news I've ever heard, because the power lies with me.